Hogstyle.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hogside. Guess what? We won a football game this week if you're a Washington fan, and that's worth something.
Tie for first.
Yeah, tied for first in the actually we are in first, I believe, in the end because of
Yes.
points or something,
Yes.
you know, whatever whatever
It's tied. Don't get your don't
Yes, I know.
get out of
It's
tied.
tied, but it's kind of just a nothing tie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 1-1. Hey, you know what? The big thing to me, my worst nightmare is always going to be this team going over as a fan. Like that, having that season that, you know, Cleveland's had and Detroit's had. That's my nightmare.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Washington has not gotten that bad, I guess.
They've never been that bad in their history.
I tell you what, another year Rivera, they might have gotten that bad.
That you might be right, because Ron Rivera would probably have who's the stupidest quarterback he could have picked it with the number 2 pick? That would have been J.J. McCarthy,
Drake May.
maybe? Yeah.
Oh, Drake May.
Drake May. Well, Drake May, yeah, he would go for Drake May. That's his kind of guy right there.
JJ
He's from
McCarthy would have
Carolina,
been
you know.
Stupid too, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it would just be a bad decision after bad decision situation.
Yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, if the whole little Danny Snyder thing hadn't happened, there's no telling who he would have drafted this year.
Oh, that's absolutely true too. He
Man.
would have traded the farm to try and get Caleb Williams. That's what
Probably,
Dan,
yeah,
that'd
that's
be the,
yeah.
That is the Dan
he would have
Snyder
traded
move.
like he would have pulled a Carolina trade to move
Right.
up one spot to get Caleb Williams.
Right. Terry, 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and one of our defensive tackles to get Caleb
Yeah.
Williams. That would
Don't
have
you
been the goal.
wonder if Danny's watching this team from afar, from some boat in the Mediterranean?
I mean, I assume he isn't, just because he's probably just rolling around in a pile of money, and you know.
But that dude's probably bitter, though, is what I'm saying.
Oh, he's not watching. He's still bitter.
Yeah.
He doesn't need
he's
to
bitter,
watch to be bitter.
And he probably has one of these accounts on Twitter right now that trolls everyone, talking about how much he hates the new name. The new name is garbage. Bring back the old name and everything like that.
Its name is Anday_Nidersnay on Twitter.
No, he's actually the guy running the NAGA Twitter, is what he is.
Yeah,
You know,
maybe.
He actually does have a Twitter account, you know.
I know he has a super secret Twitter account. Yeah,
He does. It's not secret. It's in his own name, but it's locked. And I tried to get us to. I tried to follow it, and when I was running our Twitter page, and they wouldn't do it.
Ah, okay. He's got one.
And
of
he
those.
had a very limited number of followers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess we should start with the good. This team did win their football game in the most unusual way possible. A 7 field goal to 3 touchdowns with no extra points scored win. Never been done before in the history of the league. There's never been a game where a team's won scoring just 7 field goals and the other one's got, 3 touchdowns.
And no extra points on top
and
of
no
that.
extra,
I mean,
like,
yeah.
it's every time a team has scored 3 touchdowns and the other team scored 0, it's always been a win for the team with the touchdowns.
And I'll tell you, the other thing's really weird, and we'll get to the stats here in a minute, but Trustway did not punt.
Right. I was going to play the Trustway game with you and win this time.
Just let you have one. Yeah, no.
Yeah, finally.
So 7 field goals, no punts.
Right.
I mean, it's just very odd.
Our new kicker, we didn't even talk about the fact that we ran out of time last week to talk about how they signed Austin Seibert after getting rid of the kicker they traded for. Was it York? Yeah, York.
Yeah.
Cade York.
Lasted 5 minutes.
Yes.
Yep.
The good news is they don't lose a draft pick now.
I mean, he literally lasted 5 minutes because he was going to get cut after he missed that first field goal in game 1. Like literally five minutes of game time.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's do stats. You want to do stats real fast?
Let's do stats, and then we can get into some fun fact stats too.
All right. Jane Daniels, quarterback, 23 for 29, 226 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Still doesn't have one of either one, if I recall. Did he have a
No.
touchdown last week? No,
He
did
has
not.
rushing touchdowns. No
Yeah,
passing
not a
rushing
passing
touchdowns.
touchdown. So
No.
oddly enough, he has no passing touchdowns, no interceptions. A quarterback rating of 99. Brian Robinson Jr. 17 for 133 yards, rushing 7.8 yards per carry, long of 40. Jaden Daniels 10 for 44. That's 4.4. Austin Echo was 8 for 38. That's 4.8 yards per carry. As a team, they were 35 carries for 215 yards. Leading receiver this week was Zach Ertz at 4 for 62. Noah Brown was 3 for 56. Austin Eckler 3 for 47. Terry McLaurin 6 for 22. There's a stat line you won't see from him very often. De'Ami Brown 2 for 17. Olamide Zacchaeus 3 for 14. He's the starter, folks. John Bates 1 for 5. Brian Robinson 1 for 3. On defense, Frankie Louvu led the way on tackling, 11 total, 7 solo. Bobby Wagner 9 totals. Benjamin St. Juste 6, and it goes down from there. As we mentioned, there were no punts by the Redskins. By Washington, Austin Seibert was 7 for 7. We'll get to that. And then the Giants, Daniel Jones, 16 for 28, 170 yards, 2 touchdowns and interceptions, quarterback rating of 100. Devin Singletary was leading rusher, 16 for 95 yards, 5.9 yards per carry. Leading receiver was Malik Neighbors. Can't say I saw that coming. 10 for 127. Darius Slayton was 3 for 33. Goes down from there, and that is stats.
That is stats indeed. So some other fun things about this whole 7 field goal performance. One, that was a team record. I double checked. There's only been 11 kickers in the history of the league who've ever had 7 field goals. One guy had 8, so it's 10. So it's 11 total have had 7 or more, which is, in 100+ years of the league, that's pretty rare. Then
that's a lot of field goals, and it's a lot of drives that don't stall out.
It really is. And the interesting thing with this one was they were all kind of chip shots. We saw that, I think the furthest was in the low 40s, right? So it wasn't like he was nailing them from 50
Listen,
plus.
by Washington standards, making a bunch of chip shots is progress.
Yeah, hey, I'll win. I'll take it. My last fun little thing I double checked. Austin Seibert's been jumping around the league for a couple of years now, right? This was not only his record, obviously, for a single game. This is his single season high of number of field goals he's made in a year. Because before this, he only ever had 6 field goals in an entire season. So
that's a good stat right there.
Right. So that's pretty good for him.
I'll give you another fun one.
All right.
Washington had 8 drives in this game. Mm-hmm. One was the end of the half. Every other drive ended in a field goal in the game. No turnovers.
Right. The end of the half was kind of just like a kneel down, right? It was
a kneel down with 8 seconds left. Every real drive in the game ended in a field goal.
Right. The disappointing thing is, if they maybe just taken a Hail Mary, they could have gotten that 8th field goal. 8 seconds, Hail Mary, you get it down with 1 second left, kick a field goal.
Who knew, though, Who knew it was going to be that?
I don't think any of us could have predicted this kind of game. We both predicted a low scoring, Steve, you and I.
Oh, Dave did too.
Yeah.
We didn't. Neither one of us predicted 7 field goals.
No. How could you?
What are the Vegas odds of that happening? Could you bet on that?
I don't even know if I'm sure you can bet on anything in Vegas, right? Like, that's kind of the way it is now. But if I wonder if you went and said, I want to put money on that, what they would give you? 1,000,000 to 1?
Huge odds.
Yeah. There were some questionable things that went on offensively, though. They still can't seem to figure out how to get Terry the ball. Now, he started off slow last year, too, if I remember correctly.
Now, this time he had 8 targets, though, but they were all short.
Right. Well, 2 of them were screens that lost yards.
True.
Right. And then he had a couple decent, 10-ish yard catches.
The long was 12.
Yeah. He had a 12, but he had another one that was like...
It's not an effective use of Terry McLaurin.
It's not. I don't know if if Jaden Daniels and him haven't found... they haven't synced up yet.
I think,
like you're supposed.
I think the one thing I noticed with me being at the game is McLaurin spends most of his time at the X spot, which is to Jaden Daniels' left side, And a lot of times that I've noticed as Jaden Daniels tried to come to the left or try to go through his progressions to come to the left, Brandon Coleman didn't have a very, very good game. So that rush from his left side was constantly forcing him to step up in the pocket, come to the right, and maneuver a lot to where it was almost like he had the center third and the right third of the field was his best places to go. And McLaurin, because I mean, McLaurin has some deep routes. A couple of them, he had a step on the corner. I mean, he was there, but Jane Daniels just couldn't get over there with progression. And a lot of main reads were shorter, stuck across the middle early in the game. So I think a lot of what they did with McLaurin was to force it to him on them screens and try to get a lot of underneath routes to him just to try to get the ball in his hands. Because every time he tried to do something deep, there was just nothing there in terms of protection for him to get to that side.
I mean, that's
what
good
I noticed
observation.
anyway.
I mean, what I heard, I got told by a reliable source that Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin just don't like each other and don't get along. No, I'm totally making that up. No, don't quote me on. I'm just making up. But no, I mean that's a good point, and it's you said something key. Brandon Coleman did not have a good game. Did not look very good. I thought he was the answer at left tackle.
Let's be clear. He was only in there for a third of the snaps.
I mean, they're doing the right thing by getting him some time.
Yes, they are. They're easing
and it's
him
not
in.
fair to judge him after what he had 14 snaps in week 1. Probably about the same.
Well, I didn't pay attention to how much snap counts he has. So then combination between him
I did last
and
week. Last week he had 14. I did look.
Yeah. So it was a combination of him and Lucas, and either way, that left side of that line just was not holding up to the pressure at all on the most part. So
I mean, I just wonder. I know this is like a Kingsbury thing, is he always puts just a guy. His best guy is going to be out there on the X, and they don't move him very much. It just doesn't make sense to me at all. Like, why wouldn't you put your best guy on your quarterback's stronger side where he's going to throw to him?
Well, I mean, it's not that simple. I mean, you got to move him around.
Sure.
Call some plays intentionally designed to get him open.
Right.
Let's see.
You can
get what's crazy is. What's crazy is that there were 2 times I saw McLaurin go in motion in that game. He probably did it more. There were 2 times that I caught it, and he was lined up on the right, only in motion to the left side anyway. So it was like he motioned to the side where he was struggling to get the receptions on, when he probably in action should have been to the other side more often, like you guys are talking about. But
okay, here's the snap count. So Cornelius Lucas had 50 snaps. Brandon Coleman 22. I think Alex, you said 22.
Yeah.
So but Coleman had 50, and so that's that's 72 snaps, and he got what 30%, 20 between 20 and
31%.
Is that what it is?
Yep. It's 31%.
There you go.
I have the snap counts up here, and they give percentages. I didn't do the math in my head.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to do it in my head. I was thinking it's a little less than a third, so like between 25 and 30%. But
no. They just write them out there for you on Pro Football
Reference. Damn, Alex, that's smart.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I can do the math on paper, not in my brain like that.
Pretty good at math.
Yes. I think they're doing the right thing, bringing him along like that, like you guys were saying. He is struggling at times. He's also showing good stuff at times. So but that's what you'd expect from a 3rd round pick. So
Well, the one thing that's definitely when it comes to Coleman, when you rely on run blocking, especially when you got to bring him, pull him, and bring him downfield like you have to on certain pitch plays or whatever.
Sure.
I mean, he's athletic, he's strong, he's fast, he's quick. In the run game, I think he's pretty good. He does a really good job in the run game. It's that pass blocking. A lot of times he's just out there like his head's on a swivel, not sure what he's doing sometimes.
Yeah.
Washington obviously did much better in the run game this week,
but
they
sure did.
However, I mean, you cannot use the Giants as a representative sample of the run game. The Giants are truly terrible against the run. They're terrible, and
they're terrible against everything generally.
They are, but they're terrible against the run. I mean, but discounting Jaden Daniels, they had 25 called running plays to the running backs.
Mhm.
And that's what we've all been saying for 2 weeks now.
Right.
Get help for the way to help Jaden Daniels is to get a running game. And this was Brian Robinson's career game. Career best.
Yes.
Career best in total yardage. At 7.8 yards per carry. We can't expect him or any back to duplicate that on a regular basis.
No.
Now,
Unless you're AP in your prime. You're not doing
even then, he's not going to average almost 8 yards a carry.
No.
But I mean, he needs to be consistently at 4.5 yards a carry.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not he can do that, we'll see. I tend to doubt it. But for this one game, he was great. Give props to Brian Robinson.
That one run play where it was trying to pick up a short yardage.
Right.
It was 3rd and 1 or something, and he just runs into the pile and then somehow broke out of that. I still even though I've seen the angle where you can see him hit the pile and then just go around it, I'm like, how did he do that? He's never done this. This is not Brian Robinson. This is a guy in Brian Robinson's jersey. I feel like
it's the ghost of somebody, Jim Brown,
popping out there for another 30 yards out of a pile.
Well, see, the one thing positive too when you look at Brian Robinson is that even when you take away that 40-yard run, he still averaged about over 5.5 yards a carry. They had 5.8, and he came to. So it was like, so when you have a running back going against a bad run defense behind a good run blocking line, if he's averaging, to me, in my opinion anyway, if he's averaging between 4.3 to 4.5 yards a carry, that's not a good game. Regardless if he's getting 4.5 and gets almost 100. But he was he was still over 5 yards a carry.
Yeah,
so he still had. Yeah. So I mean, so he did what he had to do against a bad run defense. So that tells me there might be a bright spot there with him going forward between him and Eckler. Of course, it helps when you have Jane Daniels as your quarterback too as well. So.
Well, that's the point. That's why in part why they have him.
Yeah, and I you brought up Eckler. I love how they're using him more and more now. I think this is kind of the sweet spot. You get him. He had 11 touches altogether, 8 runs, 3 catches. I think that's kind of where a veteran, dual threat running back's going to be. Maybe it's 5 and 5 1 week, but you don't want him to have the ball 20 times a game at this point in his career. Probably.
I mean, I think 11 touches for 85 yards, which is what he had, is solid production from the guy.
Right. That's exactly what you want. You give me 75 to 100 week in, week out from a guy like that, I'm happy. I'm very happy with that.
Absolutely.
I honestly am surprised, though, they haven't used their third running back at all yet.
Nichols?
Yeah, Nichols.
Mick Nichols? Is it Mick Nichols or Nichols?
Mick Nichols, I believe.
I think it's Mick Nichols.
Darren McNichols, yeah.
No, you would have thought he would have got a carry here or there for sure.
Right. Yeah. Just, spell back kind of thing. But overall, I don't see how he can be unhappy with that run game. I think the threat of Jaden Daniels being able to run is really helping them there. Similar to RG3 and what he did for.
But he had less carries this week than last week.
Right.
Yeah. 10 carries, 6-10 this week, 16 the week before, and a lot of them weren't like design carries and stuff. It was just him trying to make plays.
Right.
Right.
I think he had 2 designed runs this time that I remember.
Yeah, not many. Yeah, maybe 2.
Yeah.
I think they should avoid those as much as possible because he doesn't produce on them anyway.
Well, he doesn't know how to protect himself either.
That too.
I had a conversation with this about somebody in my office this week, and I said some like off the cuff, like, I don't know how Lamar Jackson protects himself. And the guy pointed out correctly to say that Lamar Jackson is really good at protecting running out of bounds.
Right.
He's got moves like nobody, but he knows how to avoid a hit, which is not what RG3 did at all. And Jaden Daniels is worse really than RG3 was, maybe at least as bad. So it's
Jaden Daniels, I think he's gotten out of bounds a few times now, like he did this week, at least.
But even when he can't get out of bounds, he just he doesn't know how. He just kind of crumples.
He needs to learn to slide. We all know. Yeah, and
his version of sliding can't be one of the ones where he starts going down his knees and he leans forward with his head.
Yeah, that's not a slide.
That's what
I was calling crumpling.
Yeah.
Because look, we all saw what happened with Tua this week. Which is a topic. You know what? We could talk about that briefly, just because we want to. Like, that is the fear with any quarterback who can run, is they take that kind of hit and you're pretty sure they're done at that point.
I mean,
Like
it's the third concussion for Tua. I
third
mean,
serious concussion
yeah,
too.
I mean,
They've all
it's
been
Yeah.
awful.
far be it from anybody but his family to tell him what to do necessarily. But that having been said, I mean, he's made generational wealth already.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, do you really want to endanger your health that much? I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, it would be a very tough call because I mean, guys like that. I mean, it's their whole life is football. They're not prepared to stop. What do you do? You know, I get it. It would be tough, but at some point you have to think about like your long-term health situation. I think
It's very similar to
like
what
Jordan
we
Reed
saw.
did.
Hmm?
Like
Yeah.
Jordan Reed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember when they cut him. I think a lot of fans are like, they had to. Like, it's just for you can't be the team responsible for a guy's
And he
doing
didn't want to
Yeah, for
quit.
his health.
Remember, he didn't
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah.
No,
Want to
he went to San Francisco
somewhere.
or
San
something.
Francisco,
somewhere,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But in Tua's case, I think it's just awful because it seems like his concussions, when they happen, we see that weird reaction he has that you don't see
Yeah,
that
his
with a
hands
lot of
crumple up.
the
Yeah.
That
hands.
one, this one, I saw it on video, not live,
Yeah.
but it was scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that last one was a little worse looking, but this was just the fact that you've seen this before and now you're seeing it again is just, what is going on with this guy. That's
I
awful.
just hope the team is telling him the truth and not just trying to keep him.
Yeah.
Well, no, they actually turned around to him and said, "We're putting you on IR. We need you to go figure this out. Go with your family. Go see an independent neurologist and all that." They want him to go out and go do what's best for him right now because they didn't have to put him on IR, but they did. They said,
I
"We're
know, but
shutting you
like
down
teams,
for a month and go."
but these teams don't always tell people the truth. I've had NFL players tell me personally, off the air, that their team lied to them about
Well,
a health
sure.
problem.
I just think
I'm not going to out the
McMichael's
player, but I'm going to
no.
put it in the chat so you guys know who it is, just
I
because I
just
know you're
I
dying to know.
I just think McMichael's our head coach. I think is a little more genuine than most coaches, and you've
Mhm.
seen that even like through some of his interviews he's had and everything. I think he's pretty genuine in wanting him to go get that help. To be
I hope you're
honest with
right.
you,
I hope you're right.
yeah. So
Yeah. I mean, I hope so too. I think when it comes to concussions, they got to try and be as on, just because of the past history with the concussion issue.
yeah,
It's also just a terrible look for the league if you keep taking that old approach that they had. So I'd hope that they've evolved
I
as a
hope.
league. Yeah.
and
It's
the
your
one
brain, man.
and the one notion that I see some people talk about. Well, they got to layer the helmets more of a special padding on it. Is
Yeah.
what you got to understand is what the main part of the concussion is the impact of the brain to the skull. You can't protect that. When you're at that high speed going forward, all those G forces coming back at you, and that
Right.
brain is just rattling around your skull. I mean, short of like injecting yourself with some kind of foam around your brain somehow, outside of doing that, you're not going to stop that. You're not going to be able to prevent that.
Well,
All you
think
can
about
do is
this.
just
What it is it's exactly like being in a car and getting in a car
yes,
wreck. Your
Right.
body's going to
yes,
go forward,
Mhm.
stopped only by the seatbelt, but your body's going to go forward when the vehicle's stopped, and that is exactly what a concussion is.
Right.
exactly.
It's
Yep,
whiplash inside your skull.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how
yep.
padded the car is, you're going to whack the windshield unless you protect yourself. And there's no seatbelt for a brain in a skull, as Dave
No.
pointed out.
I mean, I don't think helmet padding is necessarily going to help. I do think that there's not been a lot of talk about how league wide guys are wearing smaller pads than they used to. They've like no one wears knee pads anymore, which is weird. Now that's
Well,
not going to stop a concussion, but
no.
I'm talking like overall health issues.
Well, I think
The
different
pads,
helmets will help from a engineering and like dynamics, force dynamics standpoint.
sure,
More
somewhat,
padding will lessen the impact, of the blow, so there's that. But again, at the end of the day, as Dave pointed out,
yeah,
it's no, you can put all the padding you want, but you get hit, by a 300 pound lineman,
right.
it's not going to be fun and it's going to
It,
cause
Yeah.
injury.
Unless you can slow down the play, which no one ever is going to want to do in the league.
No.
Yeah. That's not ever going to happen.
I mean, Washington, like I said, we said Washington's had this. Jordan
Mhm.
Reed, I want to say someone else had the same thing. I don't know, I'm forgetting, but it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
point is, I mean, nobody wants to see crippled players.
No.
Like, was it Wilbur Marshall?
There have been so many that have had post like career
I think it was
issues.
Wilbur Marshall that had really bad issues.
I mean, Clinton Portis, we know, has some serious issues from concussions. I don't think
Clinton
that's
Portis has got
I
more
mean-
serious issues than just concussions.
well, but
I mean,
I think one and the other might be a little related.
One he caused himself.
Yes.
one of the worst they can go back to is Junior Seau though. 'Cause, I mean, he's
Oh, of course.
Because I believe he was the one that actually donated his brain for our study too, right?
He was
Yeah, and then
one of the early ones to do that. I don't know if he was the
Yeah.
first, but there have been a couple big name players who did that.
Okay, so I was thinking of Wilbur Marshall, but Wilbur Marshall did not have concussion problems.
Oh,
He
okay.
had spinal, shoulder, and knee problems, but he's like
Which-
really crippled. But so that's what I was thinking of, but I was wrong about what
Hmm.
his injury was. So
I mean, there are plenty of guys where I think you know it's not a secret. Plenty of guys talk about how your post playing career, your body is broken down.
Yeah.
Like that's the cost of the fortune that they get is you might be using a cane by 50, or more.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I'll tell
yeah.
you, I was in. Can I say this out loud? I better not. Never. I'll tell you off the air. I don't want to
Okay.
out a name.
All right. Let's get back to the game then.
Yeah.
Overall, let's do our Daniels grades. I feel like every week we kind of need to do a little grade on Jaden Daniels, right? So, what do you guys give him for this week?
I personally, I'm at an A- for him, and there are two things that that stand out from me. Under pressure, he was 9 for 9, 140 yards with a rating of 118. So, and this is the second week in a row where he's been very calm and cool under pressure, and he's been making right decisions with the ball and keeping the ball out of harm's way. The play to Noah Brown in under 2 minutes, he did a fantastic job of coming up and navigating up in the pocket. Because again, guys are coming in from the outside off the tackle edge right there, and when he came up, you were able to watch him look that safety over to keep him on the 1/3 of the field before Noah Brown took off into his route, and then right as he went to break into his route, that ball was already out, anticipating where he was going to be. And when I look at the replay, I don't even think Noah Brown even had to jump or dive for that. And
No, it hit
probably
him right
because
in
he
the
kept
numbers.
yeah, so it was like, but how he broke down, but how he held that safety, stepped up in the pocket and delivered that throw, and how he was under pressure. Granted, he had no touchdown throws. I get that, but whatever. I give him probably an A- for that game.
I think last week I think he was like at a solid B level. I think he's slightly improving this week. I'm not going to go A- yet. I still think it's in the B range. But if you remember, like let's say he was an 84 B last week, he's an 86 level B, grade wise this week for me.
Okay.
For me, I had to step away there for just a minute.
No worries.
I'd give him a B, I'd say. I think he hasn't made mistakes.
No.
Didn't make mistakes and hasn't made mistakes, which is really good. A lot of times rookies throw a ton of interceptions. He hadn't done any of that, obviously.
Right.
Hadn't gotten it done and getting it in the end zone. He's had a high completion rate. I don't think he's still reading the field at a level that you'd want necessarily right now. And that's where I kind of hold this grade down a little bit. It's because of that. So I want to see, and it's just look, he's a rookie. It's not really a criticism. It's just he's a rookie and he needs to get better at it.
Right. He's
so
developing.
So I don't think he's worthy of an A grade. I think he's like a low B to me.
Yeah.
You know, and because he didn't make mistakes, you know,
I mean, he
that's my
has a 75% completion rating. No, people, even though it's a lot of dink and dunk short passes, it's a lot of screens right
It
now.
is. It is.
It is. But 75% is a great number. Like over 2 games, that's pretty rare that anybody is putting up that level of accuracy over
Well,
multiple
it's all,
games
but
right now.
again, it needs to be said he's thrown very little
Right.
downfield.
Yes.
It's not going to stay at 75%. It won't.
No.
Right.
And that's the reason why it's so high. And Cliff Kingsbury's doing it intentionally as a strategy to kind of break him in easy, for lack of a better way to describe it. And it's not even bad or wrong. It just kind of is.
Right.
And so, but I can't give him an A because of that. And you didn't get, at the end of the day, you didn't get in the end zone. And granted, all those penalties and the offensive line, all these false starts and all these stupid things happen. A lot of it is that, but you need to score touchdowns, and we need to see the offensive coordinator open up the offense and let him kind of really play for a couple weeks before we can say he's.
It felt like they did a little of that in the second half.
A little bit.
Yeah.
The Noah Brown play.
Yeah. That's interesting on your perspective on that, because it's not that I don't weigh in the aspect of him and his progressions on the field like you're talking about. Is early in the career, I kind of keep that as kind of a low bar with that. So I just look at his decision making, minimal to no turnovers. He's had no turnovers. And is he good with the ball? Is he taking care of the ball? I kind of weigh that a little bit more. So it's interesting how you and I are kind of a little, I don't want to say flipped on that, 'cause I think you still have an onus on protecting the ball, but I don't have that bar quite as high. Probably not until maybe like week 6, week 8 is where I'm going to start really kind of, am I seeing that progression yet? But I get what you're saying, and you're not wrong. I get that. Yeah.
Well, here's my perspective. I'll give you another analogy. So if you've ever watched like the talent shows, like American Idol, American's Got Talent, all of that, a lot of times they'll have kids on there. And these kids are really good for kids, and because they're kids, they kind of blow the audience away. But the truth of the matter is, if you compare the kid is jumping into an adult competition, which is good for the kid. Praise all be to the kid. Praise be. But if you compare him to adults, take away the fact he's a child, sometimes those kids don't measure up, but they get kind of bonus points because they're so young. And that's I think where kind of you and I, again, it's not even really wrong you're giving the kid great points. I get that, you know, that's kind of where you and I are. I'm evaluating the kid as an adult. You're giving him a grade that's within the context of where he is in his career, which is also fair and reasonable, but that's just we kind of see differently.
Right. I think, yes, if you were saying, well, Jaden is not Aaron Rodgers. Of course not. You know, like
thank God, because Aaron Rodgers is a weirdo. But sorry, continue.
Let's hope Jaden doesn't go. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers was always this weird. I think he's just gotten weirder.
He was like, he's definitely gotten weirder. He was always kind of estranged from his family, and which is I can't even fathom what that's like.
That's true.
Well, he's always been arrogant, even from his times at Cal. So
even by like football standards, that dude is pretty arrogant.
Yes, which is pretty high, honestly. I think we all know these guys have to be right to make it. Some of them.
Not everybody needs to be super arrogant. We've talked to players on this show before, Dave.
Yeah.
That were not all overly arrogant.
Some of them who's never arrogant? Lineman.
Joe Jacoby was the most down to earth guy.
Yes.
We ever talked to.
Nicest guy I've ever talked to. Yeah.
Yeah, and we heard from him after it, and we still DM him every once in a while today, and he's every so often, but so there's for every one of those there's somebody like a Michael Irvin out there though,
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yes, that's true. God, I don't like those guys. And I don't want them on my show.
Well, we good because Michael Irvin won't be on our show. So
no, never will happen. And we're never gonna even ask him. That's how strongly.
No, I don't want to talk to him.
No.
That's why for as many people want Travis Hunter from Colorado in next year's draft. To me, I'm thinking, you know what? Talent aside, you got great talent. I'd much rather not have that attitude and the righteousness that he has within his game. I'd rather not have that on this team.
I'll tell you,
that's just me.
I mean, as the seasons go by, I get more and more. I care more and more about the attitude and character of the players I'm rooting for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I cannot root for Tyreek Hill, for example. I'm not going to root for a
Right.
guy who punched his pregnant girlfriend in the stomach. I don't care how good he is. I'm not going to root for Deshaun Watson. You
Right.
know, where in years past, I think I probably would have, and because a lot of people close their eyes to that.
Yeah.
You know, they just root for their team, and that's not necessarily wrong either. But I cannot do that. I cannot do that anymore.
Yeah.
They don't have to be angels, but they can't be scumbags.
Right.
Right.
Look, they're all humans. But and I wanted to talk about Jamin Davis getting a healthy scratch. Jamin Davis has had his issues, this speeding problem he got in trouble for, right?
Yeah.
I'm not mad about. You got arrested for speeding, okay. Now the whole thing that happened when they were racing and that girl died, that was awful.
Somebody died,
Yeah.
but he wasn't
Yeah.
driving either. But he was certainly
He was
partly
around. He was
responsible.
involved.
Yeah. Right.
Don't like that, but
No.
I can forgive a speeding ticket.
Well, like
yeah.
who was the linebacker from San Francisco? Reuben Foster.
Yeah,
Yeah. Reuben Foster.
I don't
Yeah.
want that guy around. I don't want to have to root for him.
I get
Yeah.
it. I get it. But so let's talk defense for a little bit here. One, I was very shocked by that they healthy scratch Jamin Davis because I thought he played pretty well that first week in terms of providing some kind of rush.
They're better off without him.
I don't know if they are. They don't have any pass rush right now.
He's not a pass rusher, okay? They might be trying to make it work with the guy. The guy ain't Lawrence Taylor. I've got newsflash. You know, they're trying to put him at pass rusher because edge rusher because he's a first round draft pick and they don't want to completely waste him.
Right.
Otherwise, they would have cut him.
But the guys that they have are doing even less.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And so that's my issue. Like,
The big
they don't have
surprise
anybody.
on the defense to me isn't that. It's that Frankie Louvu has really panned out. That guy's all
he's
over
put
the
up
place.
numbers, but he's missed a couple big plays.
That's fair. Sure. It's fair, sure. But he's put up big numbers. He's gotten a lot of tackles. It seems to be all over the place, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of just the opposite, has anyone seen Jonathan Allen this year?
No, he's MIA.
No, I realize I'm shaking my head. This is an audio medium. No.
Well, as I didn't go over all the tackle stats for everybody, but he had one. He was credited with one tackle, which was not a solo tackle.
So
against the Giants.
Wow. All right.
And I think the running back just tripped over him, is what happened.
Yeah. Oh well, the worst part about watching the Giants' offense is they just ran it up the gut every time.
Deron Payne didn't have any tackles.
Yeah.
We haven't heard a lot from him either. Some, but not a lot.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on there.
Well, I know Dan Quinn talked about they were both being kind of double teamed and everything. I find it hard to believe that both defensive tackles are being double teamed.
I don't know how you could do that from a numbers standpoint.
Yeah, exactly. Now I could see Deron Payne getting more attention than Jonathan Allen. So maybe Deron Payne I could see that with. Okay, you could use that excuse to some degree. But Jonathan Allen, he hasn't done anything to affect either one of these first two games at all.
Yeah, if your defensive tackles are, even if one or both are getting double teamed on the regular, then you should be blitzing linebackers and getting all the sacks with your linebackers at that point.
Don't forget that Allen had a bad attitude last year. Maybe it hasn't gotten any better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's an attitude thing or if it's an age thing at this point. I mean, he is kind of getting up there in terms of his, NFL career years.
Okay, so he's 29. He's going to be 30 in January. His cap hit next year is $23 million, which is about $1.5 million more than it is this year. His dead cap though is only $6 million, as compared to 12 this year. So I mean, they would save if they cut him today, which they're not going to do that. Don't get me wrong.
No.
But if they were, they would be a $9.4 million savings. They cut him next year, it's $17 million. But Washington doesn't need the cap space. They don't really need to cut him.
No, they don't need the cap space, but they need him to play. Play up to what he used to be.
Has any team have a more inefficiently constructed defensive line than Washington?
In recent history, no.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The current iteration of it. Like how many resources do they have for like comparatively little production out of that group?
Well, I often wonder that maybe part of the whole reason for drafting John Newton, who was pretty invisible for that game too as well. But the whole point of him is it's just ultimately Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne, most likely Jonathan Allen is going to be moved after this year. So they keep Mathis as a continued rotation and they go forward with that. Maybe they use Allen to try to get an offensive lineman next year or something like that or whatever the case may be. But
I would have rather not drafted Johnny Newton and drafted an offensive line directly, but okay.
but
we've been over that though.
We've beaten that to a dead horse already. So, but I don't see Allen. I think Allen would be the odd one out between him or Payne, to be honest with you.
Oh, I do too. I think Payne's probably a better player. He's more disruptive.
At this point in their
otherwise,
careers,
other things on defensive secondary. I mean, look, they let Malik Neighbors run all over him and back and everything.
Who was it that was covering him that just kept over pursuing on all those cutback routes? It was because it wasn't Benjamin St. Just. It was whoever they had.
It was between Davis and the one corner's last name I can't say correctly.
Oh yeah.
Igno Benny, him.
Igno Benny, whatever. I think the most frustrating part is on that drive where Malik Neighbors had dropped that pass from the sideline right there and a turnover on downs.
Yeah.
I am looking right down the sidelines and I'm sitting there screaming, why is he on Malik Neighbors? I'm sitting there and I'm turning the other guys around me in the stands. Why do we have that guy one-on-one, no backside help, no nothing on Malik Neighbors? But thankfully, Malik Neighbors dropped the ball. But that's exactly what he ended up doing. He came up, he bit on the route, whatever move it was he had on him, and he was wide open. Malik Neighbors just dropped it. I'm thinking, what coverage scheme is putting him man-to-man on that with no backside help? I was screaming at. People were looking at me, laughing at me. I'm like, look at that.
Well, that's what we said. We said that in last week's preview, and I think we said it in this week's game preview too. I mean, they have to be smarter about their coverage schemes, and they're facing really talented receivers.
Right.
And they haven't been.
No.
You can't let Benjamin St. Just go press man on Mike Evans. And when you have Malik Neighbors running all over you, maybe you ought to slide some coverage this way.
I think,
look,
especially when you don't have a lot of talent. You don't have a lot of talent.
Yeah. At best, you have very average corner play.
Yeah.
At best.
At best, that's where Benjamin St. Just is. He's an average, league average.
He would be a good, I don't like the number 1, number 2 thing, as Alex, at least you know, but if he wasn't the team's primary corner, he could play that role fairly well, probably.
Right.
But he's not an elite corner who can face up against pick your Jerry Jeudy or somebody, whoever. Pick your
also
top receiver.
Because of his size, and he's not like a speed guy.
No,
he's a physical. He's a big physical corner. You have to play matchups with guys that's who's on your roster. You can't say left side, right side anymore. I mean, unless all your corners are the same body type.
Well, you can if you have a smart zone. You can do that. But they haven't been doing that always. They put, as I said, St. Jude's press man on people sometimes.
I know watching that game and kind of listening to what people talk about with that defense and being there live and everything. In the back of my mind, it's almost like, there's really nothing that Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn can do with this unit. I mean, no matter what they try to do or anything, it's almost like, this year's a mulligan. We're going to see what we have, and that's it. Go forward.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up. We'll do game balls, one on each side. They did win.
We forgot to do game balls last week, but
we did, but it was a loss, so whatever.
Those are the most fun, though. I like them.
Those are the most fun. Well, Steve, do you want to give one for last week too? You can. No one's going to stop you.
I'd have to go back and look.
All right, let's just do this week then. Yeah. All right, I'll start us. Okay. I think no shocker that I'm going to give our brand new kicker, Austin Seibert, the offensive game ball of the week.
Leave it to Alex to give it to the special teams guy.
The guy who scored every single point.
Every point.
Yes. And on defense, I mean, no one really did a whole lot. I guess Luvu, just because he had the numbers. But no one really impressed me on defense, so that's where we'll go.
All right. I'll go.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dave. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to just stick with the obvious on Jaden Daniels on the offensive side. I think he still continues to do well on taking care of the ball and not making the crucial mistakes. He navigates the pocket well. That final drive, he was on point, under pressure, everything. I really like what I'm seeing in him. On the defensive side, I am going to give it to Benjamin St. Juice. Why? Because he looked more competent this week than he did the week prior. The week prior, he was just stone cold on everything. At least he was a little more disruptive in certain on a lot of plays, and he was like Benjamin St. Juice the first couple of years, where it was like, we may have a little something there, and he's looking like he could be pretty decent. That's what he looked like in that game.
I meant to mention earlier that Mike Sandersill got beat by Wan'Dale Robinson on that touchdown. That was a key to the game that I pointed out. That you couldn't have that out of that matchup, and that cost them one of the things that cost them the game. For me, I think the offensive game ball is obvious. I mean, Brian Robinson had a career day, 17 for 133 yards.
Yeah.
He's got to get the game ball. And on defense, I'm kind of like you, Alex. I mean, none of these guys impressed me. Frankie Louvu by default because he had 11 tackles.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you lose to when you should have lost, newsflash, Washington should have lost this game. And they would have lost this game if Graham Gano hadn't gotten hurt on the first play of the game.
Right.
They would have lost this game if that hadn't happened.
It would have been like 24-18, and it would have been a loss.
Yeah, right. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the Giants kind of self-sacrificed themselves to another couple of ways. They really should have lost this game.
The only counterpoint I give to that, because they had at least 2 drives, but I know kind of 3 drives, but mainly 2 drives where they were just moving downfield. They get inside the 10-yard line. Next thing you know, a false start penalty and another stupid penalty, backing up, and now they're facing like third and goal on like the 15-yard line.
I agree. However,
so that's just a counter. Not to say that they would have scored a touchdown, but they shot themselves in the foot too.
I'm going to prove you wrong.
That's fine.
They would have kicked both extra points instead of going for 2, or they would have kicked 3 extra points instead of going for it. But also, when they went for it on 4th down, I think in the 4th quarter, they would have kicked the field goal there. Yeah, they were in like the 40. It would have been like 40-yard kick or something. So I agree with you, Dave. That's what I mean. They self-sacrificed themselves.
Yeah,
that's what I agree with you. But they would have definitely kicked the extra points on the touchdowns, and they would have kicked that one field goal.
No, was their kicker injured in that game? That's why they didn't go for it.
Graham Gano got
hammy
hurt
or something
on the on the kickoff return that got called back by Austin Eckler.
Right.
Gano got hurt on that play and never came back. He was standing there on the sidelines in a helmet because he was mad, but they didn't let him play. Yeah. And the announcers were talking about how the punter, whoever that was, had kicked a 50-yard field goal in warm-ups, but they didn't let him even attempt a kick.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he didn't look good on the few things he did attempt.
True. I gotta say, we had to point it out that this was a really lucky win by Washington.
Yes.
Sure.
All right. We're moving on to Cincinnati. Monday night game. Cincinnati's 0-2, shockingly. Somehow they have not come out of the gate very well this year, but they're favored by 8.5 points in this game, and we all know how Washington plays on Monday night.
Terrible. Newsflash.
Yes. History of being terrible. But so I don't know how much. Did you guys watch much of Cincinnati yet?
I watched 0.
Okay, I watched a little of their first week versus New England. There is a way that Washington can be in this game. Cincinnati's bad against the run. Washington is obviously being very run focused right now. I think that I'm not saying it's a way to win, but I think it's a way to stay in it.
Well, I think they have to do that because, I mean, look who we're talking about here. Okay, I mean, we're talking about a team that has Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jamar Chase is an outstanding elite receiver.
Yes.
There's no way that's going to go well against this. Jamar Chase is going to eat them alive. And so I think they have to control the clock. And the way to do that is the run game. And particularly, if I mean, I'm not sure I'm convinced that this early in the season anybody's good or bad, but Cincinnati is giving up 4.5 yards per carry this year, and that's what Alex is talking about. That is ranked. It's the middle of the pack, 14th.
Right.
It's the dead center. It is the midpoint. They're tied with 4 other teams.
Yeah, they've allowed, I think, 300 yards rushing already this
319.
season. 3. So over 150 a game. That's a lot.
But it's an average of 4.5. The teams have run the ball a lot against them.
Right.
That's why. Incidentally, Washington falls in this group too. They are at 4.6 yards per carry on defense. Just in case anybody knows. So I think they can run against Cincinnati, but more importantly, I think they have to because they cannot.
Right.
And by the way, I mean, Cincinnati is going to be primed to put a whooping on a team because they're mad. It's at home, and it's a Monday night, and they're mad that they lost 2 games.
Yeah. I mean, you can't be mad you lost to the
New England
Chiefs,
one.
But yeah, like the New England one was as easy of a opening game as they should have won because that was at home too. Yeah. It's a good offense. I still don't. I wonder, is Joe Burrow ever going to be what he used to be before his injury?
No.
At this point?
No.
Yeah.
But he's still a good quarterback, but I don't think he's going to be an elite franchise guy. No. Dave, if you disagree, it sounds like you kind of disagreed.
What, on Burrow?
Yeah, Burrow.
No, not on Burrow. I mean, Burrow, I don't want to say he hasn't shown much since the injury, but he certainly hasn't gotten back to where he was.
No.
You said like you disagreed. That's why I said that.
If I did that, I didn't even know I did that.
Wow, Dave's good as well.
No, but whatchamacallit, I read a few comments on people on Twitter going, well, heading this game, I know Jamar Chase is great, but he's disgruntled. Wants a new contract and he's frustrated and aggravated. Well, I got news for you. This is a get well game for Jamar Chase. This is a game to where Jamar Chase is going to go, you know what? I deserve to be paid highest paid receiver. Let me show you why I deserve to be paid the highest paid receiver in the league. In fact, he is going to win many people's fantasy leagues this weekend when he's done this weekend. There is no doubt in my mind Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase against Washington's defensive backfield, start him.
Yeah, they have no shot against Jamar Chase. They have no real shot on containing their overall offense and what their scheme is. But the one thing is their defensive coordinator. I was listening to I forget who I was listening to today about that, but apparently their defensive coordinator has not allowed Kansas City and a Patrick Mahomes team over 19 points in the last 2 of the last 3 meetings they had or something like that or whatever. So it's almost like he has Patrick Mahomes' number because Patrick Mahomes always looks kind of average against him, and then it's always like a defensive score from Kansas City or whatever that kind of gets them up over the top and everything. If he's doing that against an Andy Reid run offense with the best quarterback in the league, what do you think he's going to do against a rookie quarterback and Cliff Kingsbury?
He's going to do a lot.
This team, I mean, they have absolutely no shot. In fact, more than likely, most of us are probably going to be in bed by halftime.
Yeah, this game's
Lou Anarumo is the name of the defensive coordinator. Yeah.
And I would point out, not to jump backwards, but I would point out that T. Higgins is no slouch either, and he's 6'4", 220
I think he's
pounds.
out for this game, though.
Is he? We don't have an injury report because the game is Monday night, so the injury report.
And they also have Mike Gesicki.
Doubtful, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
They have a lot of weapons. They really
do.
The only thing that kind of helps Washington is that they haven't been too effective running the ball. I know that they had one running back who's got a good yard per carry, which is Steve's thing. That's probably the number you always look at.
It is.
But in terms of overall production, they just haven't produced in the rushing game.
Running wise, Zach Moss is 28 for 78, 3.7 yards per attempt. Chase Brown is 7 for 42, which is 6 yards, but that's 6 yards per carry. But that is not a
Not a big enough sample size.
Solid, not a big enough sample size. The guy you're talking about is Zach Moss, and no, he hadn't been great.
No. So it is a one-dimensional team in that regard. But
one dimension might be enough in this case.
It's the one dimension that Washington freaks out about.
Well, and the other problem is Washington hasn't been good in applying pressure. We just talked about it earlier. Jamin Davis wasn't really the answer, but none of the other edge rushers, the second-rate Walmart edge rushers they have, are the answer either. I don't know why Washington traded away Montez Sweat. I still don't understand that, but it's in the past. But that's one thing for next season they'll have to improve. But they can't get pressure on these quarterbacks.
You know who would not have traded? The guy in the front office right now, Peters.
Probably
There's no
not.
way that he trades him.
Probably not.
Because he knows the value of that defensive line, and if he was running the show, now Chase Young would have definitely been going for just about anything. That I can almost guarantee. Even though he was on the team that traded for him, that was John Lynch and all of them that engineered that trade on the most part, not necessarily Adam Peters.
Oh, I think they did the right thing in getting rid of Chase Young and bad attitude from day one. Yeah, definitely.
But Montez Sweat, even there.
No, Montez Sweat, though, the production was there, though.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
That's the reason why he got a contract extension, and Chase Young moved again.
Yep. Although Chase Young is on a undefeated team right now in New Orleans, technically.
Good for him.
Yes, it's nothing to do with him. It's everything
exactly.
To do with their
I was going to say.
Yeah. All right. So I mean, we are kind of running out of time here, so let's just do score predictions for this game.
Okay.
Yeah. Dave, you want to go first?
Sure. I'll say 34-21.
34-21. Okay. I assume Bengals win.
Yes. Yes.
I'm gonna say 31-10.
31-10. Ooh.
Yeah. I think
bad day for the offense.
I think it's a blowout. It's Monday night. The Bengals are motivated. Washington hasn't defense is what we thought it was, and they haven't really figured out the offense yet. So I think this is a recipe for bad.
So
and by the way, so Chase Young this year has played 2 games and has 4 tackles.
Okay.
So at least he's earning his money.
Yep.
No, that's two solo tackles.
Oh, I know. Good for him.
Wow.
Good for him.
Half a sack. So there you go.
Oh, and half a sack. Look at
earning his money. But sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
No, I think it's my turn here.
Yes, it was our turn.
So look, I don't think Washington wins. I do think that the offense is starting to figure it out, though. I'm a little optimistic there. I think that you guys are both right on the money. It's going to be Cincinnati scoring 30 plus. So 31, 30, anywhere between 31 35 is not going to shock me. I'll go 35 just because it's a good even football number. But I think the offense, Jaden Daniels will get his first touchdown. He'll get 2. I think they get 24 points on offense this week. Wow. I think they're starting to figure it out. So
I mean, for me, the problem is like the improvement we saw this past week was against a terrible team.
Right. I know.
Yeah.
But sometimes, Steve, beating up a terrible team helps your team gel.
Listen, I like to pick on the people who are weaker than me. I understand.
It's called the Alabama model.
It's fun. Yeah, it's fun to pick on people who are weak. I encourage that for everybody.
We talked about
that came out bad and arrogant, didn't it? Well,
no, not at all. We did talk about Tua. We have a few minutes left. Bryce Young got benched. Let's hit it real quick.
I'm shocked.
If you want an instruction manual of how to ruin a quarterback, we've talked about this many times. One of the easiest things you can do as a franchise, change head coaches and offensive staffs multiple times in a quarterback's first year. Bryce Young was on his 3rd coach, 2nd offensive coordinator.
Look, here's the thing. I agree with that.
Yes.
But it was obvious to me when I did the film study on Bryce Young last offseason for the draft preview that he was an outstanding college quarterback that was going to have trouble transitioning to the NFL for a variety of reasons. His body type, his play style, none of that wasn't really a pocket passer. None of that looked to me, and I'm just some amateur with a dude with a computer. And so NFL real scouts ought to know this. But a lot of times these NFL scouts fool themselves and they see physical characteristics and think they can coach the rest of it in, and they can't. Sometimes the guy is who he is. And so I think it's a combination of the Carolina Panthers doing bad things with him, but also it's just Bryce Young. He's just not going to make it. So he's benched. Did you say that he's benched?
Yep, he is now benched. They're going to go with the old red snapper, Andy Dalton. Wait, what was it? What was his name? Red Rifle, right? Red Snapper was our long snapper.
The Red Snapper was our long snapper. Yeah, it was the Redskins' long snapper's name. Ethan Albright, wasn't he the?
Yep.
Red Snapper.
Yeah, but Dalton had another name like that. I think it's Red Rifle or something.
Let's just call him Big Red.
Yeah, Big Red. That's always, you always call that to any ginger, right? I had a buddy. His nickname was Big Red. He was maybe 5'5". So
I mean, Dave's 4'10".
But Dave's not a ginger, man.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I don't even know what Dave was because he's.
Dave grew 2 inches over the past. Last time I pointed out he was 4'8", and he's grown 2 inches since then. So he's 4'10" now.
4'10.5". Let's get it
right.
No,
I don't lie to him. Okay, don't
lie. Every half inch counts.
You'll have to believe it when
that's what I've always said.
Alex, oh God, let's move on, please.
All right. So the moral of the Bryce Young story. Even if you don't
draft quarterbacks too high,
don't do that. But even if you don't love Cliff Kingsbury's offense, the worst thing I think we could do to Jane Daniels would be, this isn't perfect. Fire him. You're better off letting him learn in one system for a year or for a couple years than moving forward.
I think the Redskins franchise over the years and years have done both of those things horribly wrong.
Absolutely.
Yes. They have drafted guys when they shouldn't draft them.
They've overdrafted. Yeah.
And put them with coaches who didn't want them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've changed coaches and coordinators. I mean, that is how to ruin quarterbacks.
It really is.
So I so agree with you so much. Even if Cliff Kingsbury isn't all that great, and give him time, again, I think they're intentionally dumbing down the offense right now. So let's see what it is 6 weeks from now. But they need to stick with it and allow Jane Daniels to develop within the confines of what he has. They need to find him an offensive line, and they need to get him some better receivers.
Right. Absolutely.
All I know is I wonder if David Tepper with Daniel Snyder on his way out had called Dan Snyder and said, "Hey, listen, give me your book on how to run an organization. We'll just redact out all the scandals. I won't do that part. But give me your notes. I need your Cliff notes."
That may be or maybe we'll have strippers on a boat at some point, from Dave Tepper. We'll see.
We never know.
Give him time.
Actually, there could be some fans conspiring to figure out how can we get him on a boat.
To get rid of him?
So we should find some Carolina fans and give them the How to Get Rid of Your Owner book. That's what needs to happen. All right, that wraps up this week's episode. We will talk to you all in 7-ish days, depending on when you listen to this and when you listen to the next show. But it's 7 days. So
I think it's 6 hours and 22. It's 6 days and 22 hours, not 7 days.
You think people would somehow do that? Okay.
Yes.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you all in a week. Later.
All right. Later.
Yeah, man, this game.